Hello. So in this video, I want to talk a little bit about how we can build a basic deck, what some criteria we have when making them, what a deck should do in the first place. So yeah, what should a deck do? Let's start here, and I have my little notes for myself here. So a deck should stand on its own without any explanation. So therefore, if you give somebody a deck, which is usually a PDF, and they open it up, it should say like, okay, what is this thing? Who's the work for? Who made it? When? What was the thinking behind it? What is the deliverable you're proposing? If there's different versions, if it's in a sequence, how to contact that person if they want to, continue further. If you're talking through work on the phone, what page you're on, what version you're looking at, etc., etc. So a deck helps you kind of organize your work. It casts it in the best possible light. You can kind of control, what color the work is being presented on, how much space is around it, what you see in what sequence. It enables you to propose something that doesn't exist yet. So like a few pages in a bigger book, or a storyboard for something that needs to be animated. And then I think really importantly in terms of process and just thinking about your role as a designer is it keeps you honest. So when you're presenting your work and you have a little artist statement or brief, is the work doing what it is that it's supposed to do, right? It kind of forces you to kind of explain your ideas back to yourself to make sure that it makes sense to yourself before you present them to somebody else. Another thing to ask ourselves before we even get started is, what is the voice of the deck? Is it something like this, which is kind of the voice of the studio? So this was a collaboration between RPM and Sibling Rivalry, and it's very, very neutral, and almost like invisible in its presence. It's still it still tells you everything you need to know, what some of the thinking is behind each of the things, what categorizes the different approaches, who made it, what page you're on, what the formats are, what they look like in the actual spread of the magazine, and that sort of thing. Or is it more like this? And see, there's the contact information at the end, which is always like a nice thing to end on. This is a student piece, which is just amazing. Gosh. And this deck is in the voice of the broader work as a whole. So it is a style guide for the Olympics, in Paris in 2024. And there's a direct visual connection between all the different elements within this Olympic package and the deck itself. It is all within one voice. I think a first step is just to create something neutral in your own kind of brand or your own kind of voice, something that just kind of is clear and simple and casts the work in a positive light. And the nice thing about that is, this deck that you make to present your work, you can just keep using over and over and over again and keep refining bit by bit with each presentation. Once you have this template set up, you can quickly populate it and adapt it to whatever you need it to do. So the time you invest in just setting up a nice template for yourself, you get back, oh my gosh, tenfold. All right, so let's just get started here. So let's start in InDesign. I'm going to make a new document, and all else being equal, I think a good aspect ratio for a deck is 1920 by 1080. That is a 16:9 frame. that looks nice on a phone when you tilt it sideways. That looks nice on a computer screen. That also looks nice projected, right? A lot of projectors. 16:9 is a good kind of gold standard format for work that is displayed on a computer screen. So let's start with that. And I personally approach the design of the deck the same way I approach anything, right? We were looking at the schedule before, and I'm just a big believer in a few different philosophical points of view in design, which namely you build things based on legibility, and you have one decision that you think works help motivate the next decision. So the most important thing is the text that you read, that base style, the style that most of the text is going to be in. And so I'm just going to make a new style. I'm going to make a text box here. All right. And I'm going to fill it with placeholder just to have some text in there. And then with that, I'm going to make a style. This exact same thing I did before. I'm going to pick a typeface. So for all the work that I do for my own teaching and my own little mini studio, I like this typeface GT Walsheim. It is a geometric typeface, so it's has a little kind of mathy geometric feel, but it's got a little warmth to it too. It has a little character. And so now that's the typeface I've chosen. So then the next step is how big, and it's like big enough that I can read it, but small enough that I have room to have flexibility with what I do. And then the next thing I'm looking at, so I'm just trying to establish a nice line length. So if I just go like this, can I read it? Yes. How's that line length? It's pretty good. So I got the typeface, the size, the line length. The next thing I'm looking for is the leading. And for the leading, once again, I'm looking for enough separation between the lines that my eye can kind of flow from one to the next without so much separation that it becomes kind of stripes. It doesn't just feel like a nice even gray. I'm also working flush left, ragged right, so I'm not trying to justify my text in this piece, so I'm just going to turn off hyphenization. And that is going to be my base style. All right, so now that I have my base size, I can start setting up some other things. So I like to use a baseline grid. It sets up a rhythm, a beat, much like a piece of music. It kind of creates a consistent interval throughout the page. It helps you make decisions. So that's what I like to do. I set my increment to the same as the leading, and then I say View, Guides and Grid, Show Baseline Grid. All right. The next thing we need, I'm going to just make sure this is set to the cap height. I'm just going to clear my selection, object, text frame options. This is so annoying. You have to keep doing this. Cap height, awesome. And then that way, if I zoom in here and I go like this, I can see that it all is on that interval, and I can use that as a guide. Alrighty, and then I might as well save this. This recorded deck demo version initials. All right, so the next thing I need to figure out is what are my margins and columns. All right, So how many columns do I need? Well, for that I have to think about like what I'm going to use this for. So I'm going to use this to present some storyboards, right? And other stuff. So even you can see where we're going with this 12. I need a 2 up, 2 frames side by side, a 4 up, a 3 up, a 6 up, right? And a number of columns that can facilitate all these different scenarios is a 12. All these different scenarios can be built from common factors, right? So a 12 is just a nice flexible column count if you're making a deck where you need to have storyboards with a different numbers of frames. It's a good kind of standard, a good place to start. So to even test this out though, I'm going to need just a placeholder. So I have this frame here, and this is a 16:9 frame. I also have a vertical frame as a placeholder. This is a 16:9 tall. This could be used for posters or phone layouts. And you know, these two are a good place to start. I save them in a folder that is in a child directory of my InDesign file. So I will have relative links. So I have a vertical and a horizontal. Cool. They're already saved in there. So okay, I know I'm going to have 12 columns. So let's set that up next. Margins and columns. The top is going to come from the baseline. The bottom is going to come from the baseline. The left is going to be some multiple of 20 if we're being really strict about it. You can also just do what looks good to you, right? You don't have to use these numbers. It's just a place to start. Like, what do we start with? Okay, well, I used this number before. Let me start with some multiple of that. Same thing for the gutter. I'm using that 20. I'm just using it everywhere. I think it tends to work out pretty well. I mean, there are definitely scenarios where we need to adjust these things 100%, but if you're just starting, there's worse places to start. All right, so now I have my text. I have my 12 columns. What else do I need? So this could be like a little brief description on the page here. I'm going to move it 3 units down. All right, what else do I need on this page? So let's just start importing some frames. And you know, right off the bat, I feel like this just makes my life so quick and so easy. You know, I only have so many places to put it on the Y. I have a consistent column count on the X, and it's helping me make decisions. Right. So what else do I need? I need every deck, I think, should have a footer. When you're looking at work, it should also have some kind of header, right? So like, what are these frames? What is this thing, right? So let's put some text over here and let's make a new style. And I would imagine that the header text, you'd want to read that first and then some kind of description. So we're going to call this E. I like to just use golden ratio as a guide. I'm also a big fan of building my styles in a way. Just hit OK for a second. Just over here. That each new style will eventually come into sync on the baseline. So if I set it to 30, every third line of text will come back into sync again. I feel like it just kind of looks it shares that rhythm. It's just a philosophical thing. I don't want any of these things to feel like restrictive at all. If this doesn't work for you, please don't do it. It's just how I like to approach it. So we're going to call these direction 1. And I'm also, once again, like this grid is helping me make a decision. I'm going to inset that header. What else do I need? I'm actually going to save that style for something else, and I'm going to make a new one. D. Same game times 1.618. Okay. So D is the biggest, then E, then F. All right. You know what? I'm going to make some other little decisions while I'm here. So I'm going to zoom in on this. I'm going to hit W. If I look at the spacing between the letters here versus here, this feels a lot more aired out than those. And that's what kind of tends to happen as text gets bigger. As text gets bigger, you tend to want to track in a little bit, which I'm going to do. I don't want it to just all smush together, but a little looks a little better. And then when it's really small or when it's caps, it's nice to track it out. All right, okay, so what else do I need? I need a footer. A footer is a little text that runs, it could be actually, could not necessarily be in the bottom of the page, but it gives you some information about where you are and what this thing is. So I think in a footer, you should have who this is for. So this is for Maine College of Art and Design. What it is, 1, 2, 3, it's a deck demo. All right. It should also, in a footer, I think, have who made it, so they know, right? So who made this? Me. When? Now sometimes there's multiple decks that go out in a single day, right? So I find like a handy thing is this this text variable, and I can insert a variable modification date. Okay, so I insert a modification date and it says February 20th, blah, 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 blah. And every time I save this file, this is going to automatically update for me, which is really handy. I feel like the time might be a bit much. So if I want to change that, I can just go over here. I can define my modification date and edit it. And I'm just going to get, and it shows me what's happening down here. I'm going to get rid of all that other stuff and just stay with that and hit done. And then the last thing I need is what page am I on? Because let's say you're on the phone and it's full screen and you're not looking at the same page as the person who's looking at it, right? That's no good. So a page number, if you want it to be automated, which you do because you don't want to have to automatically add the page number in every page, you insert a special character, a marker, a current page number. All right. So what do we got? Who it's for, what it is, who made it, when, and what page we're on. And then it's also like, what am I looking at? You could say, I don't know, the direction 1 or some kind of sequence or whatever, right? And then you can give a brief specific about what's different about this one versus direction 2 or whatever, right? Or maybe this isn't even on there. But it's just good to have this in your template if you need it. All right, so the next thing I'm noticing is I kind of like this like outer small margin for my frames and this kind of inset margin for my other type, but I want it kind of hugging this inner margin here. So what do? I could create another style, but ultimately what I want is everything to be exactly the same as F. So if I tweak the size or the leading or the tracking or whatever, I just want it to be just like F, but be right justified. And to do that, I made a copy of F and I say based on F. And then I'm going to say F underscore right. Right. Now, in some programs like Affinity Designer, you can even see what styles are dependent on others. But this is like, it's a dependent style or a nested style, and I'm just going to do this. All right. And so now, let's just click on nothing, go to F, and let's say I want to add a smidge of tracking to F. You can see what's over there. Yeah, here we go. See, that other style will pick it up. Here's a good moment to talk about character styles. So I told you like character styles of the devil, and they are, because character styles are very sticky and they override other stuff. So if you're just applying character styles willy-nilly, it's going to be a nightmare. But there are certain scenarios where a character style could be really handy, and here's one. So let's say this is all one paragraph of type, and I can see that because if I show my special characters here, this is all within one paragraph sign. Right? But I want the folio, the page number, to be bold. So what do? So I can make a style, and I can call this bold, and I'm not gonna set anything in here other than I want it bold. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to ignore all the other attributes and assign a bold. Another great kind of use for this is over here. So when you're setting type, if something's all caps, it tends to look a little better with a bit more leading. So let's make another character style called caps. In this character style, I'm actually going to just call it F caps because it only is going to work for F, I would imagine. But I'm going to give everything a bit more tracking, and then I can tweak it after the fact, but I'm just going to apply it to this. Oh, I might have accidentally applied it to everything over here, so there we go. F caps. All right. And now I can go over here, and I can dial in how my caps are treated. All right. All right. All right, so now I got this set up. I can keep going. Oh, I'm looking at this document here. I find that decks tend not to be spreads. They tend to be shared digitally and are more screen-based for the kind of work that I usually do. So I'm going to turn off facing pages. And I'm also going to... We're going to get to the parent page in a second. I'm going to have it be 1. So yeah, like what kind of things would you like to have on a parent page? I would imagine your footer and your columns would be a good thing to make a parent page of. So if you want to create a parent page based on an existing layout, you just drag it over here. All right. And I'm going to delete this one. I don't get confused. No worries. Then I'm going to go over here. I am just going to I'm going to cut all that out. I'm just going to keep the footer, and I'll show you why in a second. And then I'm going to drag this on there. I'm going to just delete everything, and go Command Alt Shift V. Okay. So my parent page has my columns, my footer, and what's cool is as I add pages, the folio updates, which is cool. And I don't really tend to do much more than that in InDesign. In Figma, you have a lot more flexibility with parent pages than you do in InDesign. But that's for another demo. I like to just kind of have my starter layouts. Just based. I just kind of keep the footer and the columns, and everything else I have just as like little template pages. So there's a 6 up, a 3 up, a 4 up. A 2 up. And see, like the columns are just making it, easy to help make decisions. So 2, 4, 3, 6. Right. It can also be nice to just have a single frame on here. And you can either have a single frame with a description. So like something like so. Yeah, we'll inset it a little. You can have a little background about it. Or it's also nice to do stuff like this, where you just fill the screen, especially when you're presenting a 16:9 frame in a 16:9 deck. In a page here. And it could either be clean, or if we want, we can start playing with layers. You can call this background to have your frame and back of your footer, which can be nice. So all these different frame configurations from the same layout. What else do we need? We also need a page that gives a little background, right? So let's call this direction 1. Let's go up another style. So this could be the blurb between your directions. Yeah, I think this particular style needs a lot more leading. And what's nice is, like, now that I'm working in the styles, anything I've assigned this to is going to, get the same thing and be consistent. So I'm kind of designing across the document all at once. Do something like that. So, eventually, you don't have to be so strict about it, but it's nice if eventually it falls on the interval of your baseline. Do we like the tracking? Yeah. sure. I think my C style could be set a little tighter. It's, it's just whatever you like. All right. So I have, oh, that's a little bottom heavy. Yeah, I mean, I don't find this very restrictive. There's still like a gazillion. There's almost too many possibilities of where it could go. It's just not infinite possibilities. That's all. Yeah, and maybe when it's a header, I can do D. Oh, you know what? I could actually just I could apply my character style to it, or I could call this. You know what? I'm going to do it with a paragraph style. I'm going to call this D underscore medium. And it's going to be based on. Uh-oh. Oh, I got to make a new style. New style based on D called D underscore medium. And people like to name it after what it's being used for, and that probably makes a lot of sense. But I really don't even know like what all my styles are until I'm basically done. So then I could go back and rename them, but like why? I'm just interested in the hierarchy anyway. All right, so there's an introduction. There's headers. I'm gonna give these the medium. I'm hitting shift. Let's see, function shift page down. Function shift down arrow to go down pages. All right. And what else do we need? We need a cover, right? And what should the cover have? Same stuff. Same stuff as the footer. So let's just go over here. What is this thing? This is a deck demo, or it's actually core. Who's it for? It's for Core Studio 2. It's a deck demo. I might even duplicate this page here and nuke the footer. I don't think you really need the footer on a cover. I'm going to introduce a new style. Call this B. Clearly this leading doesn't work. That's set way too tight. I mean, what if I had some descenders? That is not going to work. How about that? Really like that either. Something like that. Cool. Let's grab a logo. And so what I've done is I've saved the logo in two different colors, so I can use it. I can use either color, but it'll be in exactly the same place. So I'm actually going to use the white one. I'll show you why in a second. I can't see anything, so let's make this dark. also don't like having any colors I'm not using in here. Find it super confusing. I'm going to send this to the back. I'm going to make this white. Whoops. I'm going to make the text white. If you want to just get to the text quickly, you hit J. Make that white. Make this. Where did my grid go? If I want to see it even when there's tone everywhere, I can just send it to the back. And I want to give this a date. Use my special little auto character thingy. And sure, D. Yeah. Very basic, but it should do the trick for now. Oh yeah, what about if I had a poster, right? We make posters, we make iPhone stuff. Now what do we do? So let's stick a placeholder in there, and maybe I'll start with this one. All right, so I'm going to place a phone or whatever. It is a vertical object on a horizontal page, so that's kind of a problem. And I like to kind of make it as big as I can, and therefore I need to bleed it off the page. But now that screws with my footer. And so, like, well, let's make another footer, right? So I could go over here. And I could say, let's just grab this stuff. Get to the right. And apply it to this. Here's another thing that's kind of annoying. Okay, so by default, it just shows the pages stacked. But on my laptop, I don't really have a lot of real estate. So I like to just change that to horizontal. And now I can move this over here. And that will let me adapt to tall stuff. Perhaps that's not kosher, but that's what I like to do. I mean, we can keep going. You could say, okay, if in my body copy main style here, to separate paragraphs, I want to add a line break. I can do that right here. Right, so each new paragraph gets a line break. That can be a nice way to bring a little air into your page and make your paragraphs very, very clear. Yeah. So anyway, that is a start.